Welcome to GreenSportsPod. I am Lou Blaustein, your host, and I can promise you that we are going to have one unique and insightful conversation with the moms of green sports. If you're watching this, you may know some or all of our interviewees. You may not know their babies, all under 1 year of age. But we thought, with this being Mother's Day weekend, that getting the moms of the green sports world, women who all have important high-profile roles in this small but growing and hopefully impactful industry, to talk about their purview, their views on their work, given now that they are moms, would be an interesting conversation. And by the way, they are among my favorite people in the world. And I don't know their babies as well, but if I did, I'm sure they would be my favorite people as well. So enough about me. Or from me, I am going to introduce our moms and their babies one by one and let them talk a little bit. So first, we're going to go in order of seniority, and waving there is Winnie, the daughter of Kristen Fulmer. Kristen, talk about your job, who you are, and about Winnie.
Hi, everyone. Lou, thank you so much for putting this together. It's really exciting to get all of the moms and babies here together. I lead sustainability for Oakview Group and the Goal Program. I've been with the company for 3 years. So throughout Winnie's life, have seen pregnancy, through maternity leave, through back at work as a mom. Winter J, or Winnie, is almost 10 months old now and growing quickly and learning more about the world every day. Thanks again for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. And thanks for bringing Winnie into the world and to this podcast. And now we go to Kristen Hanksor. Another Kristen, spells her name slightly differently, but also a mom. Kristen, take it away.
Hello, Lou. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen. I'm a senior associate at WM, and I work on the advisory services team. So my job is to help lead the MLB WM partnership, where we're leading sustainability for the league and for all of the clubs. I am mom to this almost 9-month-old Shannon, and this is Shannon Joyce. We share the same middle name, which is actually my mom's maiden name. Little Irish heritage in there. And yeah, just very excited for this conversation with these wonderful women and babies, trying to make this world a better place for these ones.
Amen. Amen. And now we go north of the border to Maddie Orr. Maddie and baby Ava, although could go Eva, but depending on where you are and what your native language is. Maddie, you're up.
Hello, it's good to be back on the podcast, and especially with this group. These are some of my favorite people, so I'm so stoked about this. I'm Maddie. I'm an assistant professor of sport ecology at the University of Toronto, so I'm a researcher in the space. And I'm Eva's mom, Eva Rowan, and yeah, also a bit of Irish heritage there in the middle name, and actually the first name. So some things in common with this crew.
Well, it's great to have you on board. Maddie and Eva. And last, but definitely not least, only last because she's the newest mom, is Ali Criscuolo. And Ali has the Y chromosome represented among babies here. So
yeah, good
Ali,
morning, and thank you so much, Lou, for putting this together. Now that we're all even more busy with being moms, we haven't had much time together, so this is really exciting. This is Luca George. He's almost 5 months old, and he's very excited to be on his first podcast. And I am the Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility Director at New York Roadrunners. I've been there for over 5 years, and my role is basically to implement the sustainability strategy across the organization. And for those of you who don't know what New York Roadrunners is, we put on the New York City Marathon, and we're a large New York City-based nonprofit working to build healthier lives for people through the sport of running. So this one hopefully will be participating in our youth programming in 2 years. Yeah,
And not eating earbuds.
exactly.
For the viewers, listeners out there, I don't have to explain, but given that we're dealing with moms and little babies, moms could need to step out for a second here and there. We will continue the conversation because these folks know how to multitask. Let's just say that. So, as I said before, all of you have become new moms within the last calendar year, within the last year, last 12 months. And, so I'll start with, how has it been to go from, you're all in super responsible, super busy, super dynamic jobs to a new mom, which is a new dynamic job, but having to step away from your professional side for a bit, whether it be a couple months or longer. Who would like to jump in first?
I'm happy to start as I guess the one with the oldest baby. So the longest time away from postpartum maternity leave, maybe. It's really hard is the answer. And maybe we'll just jump right into it. It's really difficult to balance. I happen to love my job and spend a lot of time focused on it. And I think it's just perpetually challenging to balance the new life that we have and what we love at home with the life we love at work. I find that it's best for me to kind of take intentional time to focus on family time. I don't open my computer, I don't look at my phone, and have to create that separation for myself to find a good way to balance it and to be a good mom and also wife, as well as still hopefully good at my job most days.
And for Kristen's job, and she runs the Goal initiative at Oakview Group, which, if I've got this factoid right, they are the largest developer operator of sports and entertainment venues of the world, and Goal is Green Operations Advanced Leadership, if I got that one right.
You did.
Which is a membership organization that of venues who Kristen and team help to move forward on a variety of sustainability metrics. Again, hopefully I'm saying it right, sort of. Kristen, during the time you were off, how was it to kind of keep tabs but stay away, and how did things go?
I mean, thankfully, I have a great team as part of Goal and OVG Sustainability who were able to, I guess, lead in my absence, and I was able to really feel trust and generally excitement that they were able to continue the work. So I didn't feel like I needed to check in and micromanage too much, but because this work is exciting and because we have an increasing number of organizations that are trusting us for sustainability engagement and guidance, it's really hard to be away for too long without wanting to maintain those relationships, check in with our clients. And we happen to be working on our first goal recognition program last fall. And that's kind of what my time that I took to say, okay, I'm coming back for this event and therefore the planning leading up to it. So it was my choice to come back, honestly, a little bit earlier than the maternity leave that was offered to me. And I was able to speak at Salesforce's Dreamforce conference last fall, which was my first trip. It was a cross-country trip. And so that was my first time to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and say, okay, I'm going to jump back into it. Here's what travel is going to look like. Here's what I need to do. All of the fun realities of being a new mom, pumping in the plane, dealing with lack of sleep and guilt and all of the fun things. But just jump back into it and say, okay, I'm going to jump into it. If I'm going to do it, I have to do it well. Same thing with the mom life as well.
That's the Kristen Fulmer I know. Not a surprise. Okay, now over to Kristen Hanksor, because you were a little newer with MLB or I'm sorry, with WM when when you went on maternity. How was that adjustment for you?
Yes, so switching jobs about halfway through my pregnancy had its own challenges. Healthcare, we can have a whole podcast about that in the US and the difficulties there. But I was relatively new, and I think I speak for all of us in our roles that we're all basically building something new at this time, and we are really owning our jobs and our careers, and we're creating things. I I definitely have been in jobs before that would have been a lot easier to have had a kid, taken off. I was at a bigger company, didn't really have my own thing, and it would have been a lot easier. But everything Kristen said resonates. It's you want to get back to what you're building, and you want to make sure that it's going well. And for the MLB WM partnership, it had just launched right when I started. And so a few months in to have that, wanting to make sure it goes well, wanting to make sure that my team, but then also the MLB team felt fully supported. It was really hard to step back. I'm also grateful that I have a fantastic team that was able to jump in. And I also went back on the earlier side, although I was really grateful to work with the WM team to allow me to have a very slow transition back. For me, it felt almost freeing around that 2-ish, 3 month to look at an email and like think about something other than just my child, who is wonderful. But anyone who's a mom at 2 months, like they're not really doing much, and your day is the same over and over, and you don't really have a life. So it was nice for me to just be able to jump in a little bit, read a couple emails, read a couple documents, and then take time and have a long transition back before I had to be full time. So that really worked for me. It was, I'm just very grateful for that. I think similar to Kristen Fulmer, we had World Series coming up, and that was a big deal. So it was our first time that WM was helping MLB on World Series. So I just think I speak for everyone where we're so dedicated to our work, and it's hard to be a mom and work. It's very, very, very hard, but being able to have the flexibility is key. And then being able to just know that we have a passion for our jobs in addition to our passion for being moms. And I think that's something I'm grateful to be able to say, even though it's something that's really hard.
Well, first of all, love the answer. The only thing that I didn't like was that it reminded me of the Yankees losing the World Series.
Yes.
But I can get past
say that.
I can get past that. So now we go to Maddie. Maddie, you're in Canada, so you have a bit longer on ramp to so to say from childbirth to back to work fully. Uh, how has it been for you, and maybe some differences from what the Kristens have said?
Yeah, it's funny, like very like right before I had my baby, I was on the phone with Fulmer and she was like, yeah, it's going to be really hard. And like, it was like a pep talk, but it just sounded like so intense. And then I was like texting with Hankser like a week in and she was like, it's great. And also really hard. And all of that just feels so real. Like, it's one of those things that, and one of the things I appreciate about this group is like, moms will be real with you if you ask the right questions. And so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this and then like have this conversation, but it's also one that we've been having amongst ourselves. I am in Canada, like you said, we have a year, you can split it between the parents however you want, of guaranteed time off. And that means that basically you can go on unemployment for up to a year and your job is protected. It doesn't mean that like you have your full salary for that time. And then your job can decide to like top you up. So it's a bit of a different model. I had intended to take a lot longer than I did take. So I had intended to take like 10 months, which even here, it's like funny to like compare like, Allie's like 6 hours away, Allie and Kristen in New York. And it's like totally like night and day different. Everyone here was like, what? You're going to go back after 10 months and not take the whole 12 to 18? Like, what's wrong with you? So it was a very different response. And I ended up like having really good intentions about that. And then, 2-3 months rolled around, like I got through Christmas time and I was like, okay, I'm going stir crazy. And then the LA fires happened and that brought me back really fast. So Because of what I do, I spend a lot of time working with impacted communities and trying to figure out what the response plan is going to be. How do we recover in a way that keeps people safe and healthy? And kind of build, as we're kind of responding to an emergency, like how do we put pieces in place so that people are more protected and resilient in the future? And so that's where we're starting to build in those like sustainability pieces, energy security and sovereignty, all these other things. And because LA kind of struck like right at my 3-month mark, like I've basically been back since. So that was my return. And echoing everything that's been said, it's hard, it's awkward, it's complicated, it's, being on phone calls where I'm like, turning the screen and my camera up so that people can't see that I'm breastfeeding like under my desk. And you just do it, I think is the truth. Like, I think the amount of strength that I've seen from women, it gives me a whole new perspective on parents and what goes into that. And credit to like another iconic green sports mom, Eileen McManaman. She kind of said to me like the week my baby was born, she said, build your Chinese wall right now. Like when you're at work and someone else has to have your kid, and you got to trust that person. And then when you're with your kid, and like work can wait. And that's been the best piece of advice I've gotten. And similar to what both Kristens have just said.
Well, I mean, you've got so many kind of different tangents in your work life, right? With academia and your classwork and the consulting that you're doing and the writing responsibilities. That wall is probably constructing that wall and keeping it up. I have to imagine is quite a challenge. Also, knowing you, Maddie, I also think it's a challenge. Like you've got no problem. I mean, not saying easy, but I bet you've got it.
I mean, no, I like candidly like don't have it at all, but working on it and like will continue to be for years, I think. But I'll pass it to
And not that this is necessary to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like I am the Y chromosome here. I haven't done any of this. So I'm learning all along as you're talking, and I get more impressed every second you guys are telling me what you're going through. And now, Allie, because you're in real time, you very recently went back to the office, I believe, with New York Roadrunners, and so what has this been like?
Yeah, and I will say just because Maddie mentioned, the power of this group, and we have a little group chat and we support each other. Kristen Hansor was there for me in person as we went through pregnancy, and every, New York City Sports Sustainability Network would be talking about, how do you show up to work when you're nauseous and just things like that. Kristen Fulmer being the first of the group has always been, sharing wisdom about what to expect next, which I can be so focused on just the day to day and not prepping for the next phase of what happens in the baby's life and our life. So that's been super helpful. And then Maddie sent me an incredible care package. When I got home from the hospital, it was waiting for me. And it was things that I needed for recovery, but didn't know I needed. So that was amazing. And I paid that forward to another friend and will continue to do so. So this group just, wow. Very fortunate and thankful to be a part of these women. But yeah, in terms of going back to work, I will say, our CEO and many colleagues were joking that I, timed the pregnancy right because it was right. I went out of the office right after the New York City Marathon. So I was fortunate enough to kind of feel great throughout marathon week and do that 8 months pregnant and then kind of start to wrap things up and work, right until Luca was born. And so timing wise, the only race I missed was the New York City Half Marathon. So out of our 3 biggest races of the year, it was, I was bound to miss one of them. And so got through that. And now we're gearing up for the Brooklyn Half Marathon, RBC Brooklyn Half Marathon. And so prepping to be out of the office for a long time, I was so in the weeds of everything. And like Kristen Hanser mentioned, we all are, in this creating phase where we're owning things and creating. And so it is kind of hard for others to step in and continue these relationships and these projects that we've built. So that was definitely my main concern. But as soon as I had Luca, he was my main focus 100%. And while I was cheering for the team from afar for the New York City half and other projects and initiatives, I was, of course, focused on recovery and being the best mom that I could. And I will never forget that time. I cherish it, and it was incredible. Very thankful for it. And like everyone said, it was definitely hard. It's definitely hard coming back. And yesterday was Luca's first day of daycare. So a lot of tears dropping him off. He did amazing. We got great reports. He slept, he ate, he smiled. So all the good things. But yeah, it's definitely hard to when, you have this career and passion that you want to pour your all into, and then you have this new amazing thing at home that you want to pour your all into. And I remember hearing podcasts and things of working moms saying you just never feel like you're doing anything 100% because you just don't have enough time for it. And so but like Maddie mentioned, Eileen's advice, just kind of being where your feet are is really helpful. So yeah, getting back to the swing of things and prepping for the Brooklyn half. Luca's doing great in daycare and taking it one day at a time.
Sounds like a good path that you guys are taking and doing well. I will also say for the New York City half, I went to the plogging event,
Yes.
which was so well run, and people were like, "Oh my God, Allie like put everything together, like all the ducks were in a row." I'm going to also give a shout out to Eco Athletes champion Lou Mial, who is a former steeplechaser at Rutgers and now is the sustainability coordinator under Allie at New York Roadrunners, and she was taking the baton on that. And Rob, your CEO, was there, and he was singing your praises and the team's praises, and he was like, that guy is upbeat, let me just tell you. And it was a great event. So kudos to you, even though it was in absentia for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being there. And yeah, like everyone else mentioned, I do have an incredible team as well that not only just continued what I was doing, but exceeded expectations with, the priorities. And so it made it easy to come back and transition.
Awesome. All right. So now pivoting a little bit at the risk of sounding cliche, how has becoming a mom changed your perspective on working in the green sports world? Maybe the compromises you have to make, the drive you want to have to do things faster, higher, stronger, or not? Like, what changes in your outlook have occurred, if any? And I'll let whoever wants to take it to start and go from there.
I can jump in to start. So because I do a lot of kind of impact and resilience work, so less kind of mitigating and reducing sports impact, but like responding to real climate hazards in the now, it's definitely shifted my sense of urgency. And it's shifted my sense of timescales. So we talk a lot in like this space about like, well, by 2040 or by 2050. And like, I now have a kid who's 16 in 2040. That does not feel that far away anymore. That does not feel like, it feels a lot more tangible to me to think about those timescales, like 2040, 2080, 2100. My kid's gonna be alive. I won't, but she will. And so that definitely changed it. And then the other part that really shifted for me is like, knowing, and we hear this all the time, but like women and children are more at risk than men from climate change around the world. And that feels real in a totally different way now. Just knowing like the amount of energy that goes into child rearing, and me being the most privileged version of this. Like I've got a partner, we both have jobs, we're in a place in the world that there's a lot of resource. Like that's not the case everywhere. And so being in the green sports space feels a lot more meaningful, feels a lot more urgent. I definitely feel like the carrot that I've been chasing in the space just got a lot bigger all of a sudden.
I feel like I balance that, Maddie, which is so noble and real on a lot of levels. I balance that with the kind of corporate grind that I'm a part of sometimes, where the urgency is around answering emails or going to visit a client or getting on a call. And so it's the urgency that you just mentioned and the pressure of that with the like, wow, my work is very small in this space and of time that I'm spending, maybe I should be spending it just hanging out with my kid. And so it's that balance of like, on one hand, it is more real and especially in 2025 in the US, it feels even more and more urgent from a climate urgency perspective. It's also like, I just sometimes want to be at home and just hang out in my little tiny little world and my little family, and that's all I want to think about. And so it's that balance that I find more exciting when you're part of wins and you're part of impact, and also maybe more frustrating when it doesn't feel like that's your day to day sometimes, and you're like a little bit distant from that. So talk about of things to balance. That's definitely one for the equation.
Balance is just basically not non-existent in our lives anymore. I think I just like echo everything that's been said. We're just trying to do the best that we can do in the minute that we're doing whatever we are doing and doing, as good of a job as we can. I definitely resonate with what Maddie said of it feels more real. That's for sure. I think sometimes I feel like people say, oh, my kid got me interested in sustainability and now I suddenly care about the planet. And people have a really big aha moment when they have a kid. We are kind of already there. So I think we're the ones that are making sure that our children will have that same drive. So I think I feel maybe less of a shift as someone who hasn't been in this space and hasn't really thought about the future for their kid. We think about the future of our world, of our industry, pretty much on a daily basis. So I don't feel like I've had such a stark shift, but I do think the reality of I'm starting to have fewer winters with snow in New York. Will Shannon see snow in New York? Those kinds of things, which feel so tiny, but those kinds of things like feel more real, I think, to me, and just continue the push every day that things are bad. We have an important job. We need to just do whatever we can, even though everything feels completely insurmountable. We just have to keep moving forward. And looking at her, it's like, okay, I'm tired, but yeah, I'll keep going.
I always thought, that I was doing this I always wanted to have kids. So I always had that in the back of my mind, but I didn't realize how much I'd feel that until I actually had Luca. And like, it's just all the cliches, but when you have a kid, you want to give them the world and like, you want it to be a safe and healthy world that they can thrive in. And so, um, I always thought, so I was raised with a stay-at-home mom and always thought maybe that would be the path for me, but I can't not work on this. It's just that drive is there. And so for him and for, the future of all of us. So
I love all of those answers. And they all bring home to me that women are leading this movement, the environmentalism movement and the climate movement more broadly, and to a large extent in green sports. I actually think, okay, that's a problem/opportunity that we need to get more men engaged, period, full stop. I'll just add that, my role with Eco Athletes, as we have 197 Eco Athletes champions. As of now, I'd say about 75 to 77%, somewhere in there, are women. And they are with some incredible, notable men who are our champions as well. But the women are, I'll just say that they are not pulling back. They are not, they are leaning into the headwinds that we are facing that have come as a result that are become more intense since the election here in the U.S. I have been heartened by the response of our champions across the board, and particularly the women, in like, okay, no, I want to take this on. I, I want to speak out on this. It's so I just think uh, uh, that is an important thing that you guys bring to the table. And I just wanted to mention our athletes as well.
I'm inspired by all of the women in this industry for sure. Maddie mentioned coming from a place of privilege around having a partner, and I just want to highlight like to be able for me to do this work. I'm so grateful to my partner, my husband, who's been a stay-at-home dad for the last 10 months. And so do want to credit the men and the amazing partners that help to support recovery and taking care of the baby. And someone mentioned earlier just that trust in the person, so that when I do fly across country for the day or something crazy for work, that I know that Winnie's being taken care of, and have that trust. So just want to highlight that men can play that role as well, in being a supporter of women doing amazing work.
And I'm grateful that we're living in a time where it's now almost expected, it's celebrated that the partner, particularly in our cases, our male partners, are like want to be involved, want to play that role that earlier generations didn't exist. So also have a lot of credit for women before us who had to do this a lot more just on their own or in their own village. But yeah, the time and place and just the ability for men to feel, or partners in general, to feel like they want to be involved, and it is really a team effort. I'm grateful for that.
It's funny. I feel like we had this conversation at Green Sports Alliance last year, a couple of us, but like there's like all this, talk about like the wives and girlfriends, like the WAGs and professional sports. And like in the green sports world, it's all about the husbands and boyfriends. Like instead of the wives and girlfriends, like the guys have really showed up. And so credit to them, like we're seeing it, and not just with the parenting, although like in this conversation, like that's obviously the focus of it. Like the guys and the allies are really showing up in a lot of other space with the green sports movement too. So like, yes, the women are leading it. And like, we know from the data, like putting my researcher hat on, like that is how it works. The women tend to lead these things, but the guys are really showing up. So credit to them.
So I guess we need to, instead of WAGs, they're HABs, the husbands and boyfriends. Yes, the HABs. All right. So it got mentioned. I alluded to it. The election here. I'm not getting political per se. What I'm trying to drill down to here is since since January, say, how has your either work specifically and or your view of how the green sports movement is dealing with the changed reality that we're in, how are you seeing that? And whoever wants to opine on that, please do.
I'll jump in. We're in a really hard time in our history, in our country. And I think for many, many, many reasons outside of the environmental component, but there's so many other social, economic issues. And it's hard, and it can sometimes feel paralyzing, and you don't know what to do. What I love so much about the sports industry and the roles that we all play is sports is in a very, very unique position where it connects people regardless of whatever they think, whatever they believe. When you are in that stadium or have that television on, you are cheering for your team, and it brings people together just truly in a way that I don't know what else does. And so leveraging on that component, it doesn't necessarily matter the politics or, whatever that divider is for communities. It's finding what brings people together and building on that. So we have that opportunity. Doesn't matter who is in power, we have the power of sports. And so I try to lean in on that every day and just say, if we can get a whole bunch of people to show up and watch these events happen and buy merch and do whatever, build their lives around, supporting their team, then we can leverage that power to do good. And that is what keeps me going and optimistic. We don't really have to, we can push some of the negativity aside and really just focus on that unifying power and use that for good. So I try to focus on that.
My perspective is obviously different. I'm out of the country, but I do a lot of work in the US. And one of the there's a few, but as someone who's not in the US who does climate work, many of my colleagues have been stopped at the border, not allowed into the US. My husband and we're likely not going to be allowed to cross into the US for the next little while. Or if we are, it'll be like after getting held up for hours, like untold hours at the airport while everything gets searched and our phones get searched and all the rest. So we've actually nationwide been advised to not travel if you do any social justice work or environmental work into the US from Canada. And that came from like on high, the highest levels of our government have said that. And so that creates all kinds of challenges for me because I, work with these three. I work with a lot of other people. I was doing work in LA, like with the fires and there was all kinds of plans getting built around going out there. Like that's not going to happen. FIFA 2026 next year, a big question mark on that. What does that look like if you're working in envirospace and you're in Canada or Mexico? Like, can you come into the US? So just there's challenges around like the international dynamic at the moment. And then Canada just narrowly escaped. Last week, we had our election and we just narrowly escaped a pretty similar political situation. And it didn't go that way, thank goodness. But like there's a lot of tension. And it kind of like hangs like this cloud over a lot of climate and justice conversations that I'm having. And it feels like it's harder to get funding for what we're trying to do. It's harder to get support for what we're trying to do. It's harder to get people to talk about it out loud because of fear of like these political repercussions, whether that's real or not. And so I think that, in some ways, the notion of like climate change is too political, we've like backpedaled 10 years into like 10 weeks, which is really, really tricky. I don't think that shuts it down. And I was recently speaking to a really good friend of mine who's at Florida State, and she was saying like, the South, like organizers in the South have found ways to work under like really challenging leadership for years on issues that are still meaningful and like finding ways to do it despite the challenges. And like, do we change the wording? Does that make it work? Like, do we work with different parties that we didn't, previously? Like, and I think that's just what we have to do. We just have to adapt. We learn what's going to work in this context and we move forward.
Amen.
Just both of what Kristen and Maddie just said, I would say I agree. And I think generally you don't get into this industry if you're not a little bit stubborn and competitive and will say, I told you so, and we're still going to find a way to make it work. So I would say definitely try to maintain that positivity and really be as stubborn as possible to try to find a way to make it work. Yes, based on those constraints in the US, we find a lot of good opportunities leading more into private companies that aren't backing down from their work, knowing that a lot of the funding, sponsorship, visibility will come from them. And they're, a little bit less hindered by the federal government because they're doing it from a marketing, storytelling perspective or just general impact perspective. I also am thankful to work at a global company where this is, it's starting to have global repercussions, but in a lot of other countries, we have more regulation, more accountability. And so there are different drivers in different regions. And so it's helpful to kind of leverage that and find ways to scale where the opportunities exist and really have an impact there, and then take those lessons learned and take the examples from other places and bring it back to the US and try to find a way to make it work here as well. So I agree with everything that was said, but now is not the time to say, never mind, it's too hard. It's always been hard. So hopefully we can continue to make it happen and make it easier for ourselves in the longer term too.
Yep. I mean, to me, the strategic approaches that all of you kind of laid out, you do what you can do today. You keep pushing a little bit today, and then you push a little bit more tomorrow. I know that that sounds as cliche as it gets, but in this situation, I think that is the thing because, because the fight will, there'll be external factors that we can't mostly control, but our fight and our approach will be what we can control. And I am glad that you guys are in the fight. That's all I can say. Well, that's not all I can say, but that's all I'll say on this matter. Okay. Because we have a few minutes left. One question, because I think that the audience probably doesn't know what you guys do day to day. So this question is going to be, what thing that you're working on at work, putting Luca, Shannon, Eva, and Winnie onto the side for this question, what one thing you're working on at work has you most excited?
I'll just jump in. So we launched something super exciting called New York Roadrunners Team for Climate at the 2024 TCS New York City Marathon when I was 8 months pregnant. And so this is a really exciting project because we're the first marathon major to have an entry method tied to sustainability. So we had around over 200 runners running for the environment, basically, at the marathon. And this is continuing at the New York City half, the Brooklyn half, and will continue into the future. And so basically, these runners pledge to raise a certain amount of funds for carbon offsets. And we've partnered with a carbon offset provider, a New Climate. And not only do these runners, fundraise for carbon offsets and then run with that mission, they also kind of pledge to have a sustainable race day experience. So they take the most sustainable transportation to the start, Staten Island Ferry. They wear these singlets, aka running tank tops that have climate stripes on them. For those of you who don't know, the climate stripes kind of demonstrate the heating of the planet over time. So it's just a really great kind of visual depiction of climate change. They also pledge to be a part of plogging events that we do leading up to these events. And Lou mentioned that before, but for those of you who don't know, plogging is picking up trash while jogging. So we have different events in different boroughs throughout New York City leading up to the races. They attend panels with professional runners such as Tina Muir, who's a sustainability advocate as well. So it's not just fundraising for carbon offsets. It's more than that. It's throughout the training process and then on race day. And then we're working on kind of phase 2 for the 2025 TCS New York City Marathon. So for this year, the runners will be, some of the funds will go towards offsetting and some will actually go towards insetting as well, because we've been exceeding our goals. We raised almost $1 million for the first round of the TCS New York City Marathon. So runners have gone above and beyond. And so we have more than enough funds for offsets. So some of that extra money is now going to insetting.
What is insetting?
Yeah, so it's basically kind of an internal balance sheet or an internal budget that New York Roadrunners can use to knock off items on the list in order to reduce our environmental footprint for our operations. So, carbon offsets that the runners are fundraising for are, mainly towards forestry projects in New York State because, they run outside, they breathe that air. So we wanted that kind of tie to New York. But when it comes to insetting, we have, measured our environmental footprint on a continuous basis with WM. Shout out to Kristen. We have our net zero by 2040 goal. And so we have a kind of list of priorities each year of things that we need to do in order to get to 2040. And so these funds are just really going to help us get there quicker, hopefully. So we're doing things like purchasing solar generators, Energy Star refrigerators for our office, run center and warehouse, and just we're able to knock off those items a lot quicker than we would have without Team for Climate. So it's been a really fun project and really excited to see where it goes.
Can't wait to see it. And love what you guys did in year one. Anyone else? What you're excited about that you're working on now?
And also congratulating Allie. It's such a cool project that you have been ideating and made happen while you were pregnant. Like, just so freaking awesome.
And shout out to Lou, Miai, and the rest of the team as well. Thanks, Kristen.
In terms of my role, I am really excited about being able to not only help the league, which our partnership is focused on supporting MLB with their measuring their environmental footprint, figuring out what reductions they can make. But what's super unique about the partnership and makes me most excited is that the partnership includes MLB covering our services for all 30 clubs. That's something that a league has not done before. So the league itself is taking it upon themselves and also providing resources to help all their clubs. And as I mentioned before, sports brings people together in a way nothing else can. If that means that every ballpark, and then eventually we'll get to every other sports venue globally, everyone in that stadium is involved in the climate movement. So they know what's going on. The venue itself is implementing sustainability initiatives. That is just going to have this huge ripple effect. I know Lou talks all the time about the power of sports. Yes, could live within the venue, but really it's about all of the people in the seats and everyone at home and wherever they are watching it. And so if all of these teams can figure out a way to talk about climate in a way, again, that's not political, not polarizing. It's just we as a team, we're doing this, get on board and do it with us because it makes business sense. It makes climate sense. It makes us more resilient. So I'm really excited to be able to challenge all ballparks and, like I said, eventually every sports and entertainment venue to get on board and then to get their fans on board, because that's really what we need in this movement.
I would just add to what I mentioned earlier about being stubborn. So in stubbornness, we just try to find any potential intersection of how to drive sustainability forward based on the challenges that a lot of venue operators face, to Kristen's point about trying to bring this kind of mainstream this work through all facilities. So I'm really excited about a new partnership that we're working on with actually a nonprofit organization that has funding dedicated towards investing in sustainable operations to help bring their mission to be more visible. And so we're routing some of their activations, so more of a nonprofit activation as opposed to corporate partners, through many of our venues this summer, including Coldplay shows, NBA, WNBA events like that. And so really excited about that because it's, we talk a lot about how corporate partners can be aligned to the mission of your work, but it's really great when you can work with a nonprofit who's doing something similar.
I think Winnie is also excited about that work.
She's very excited. Yes, very very interested and very excited to see everyone.
She's like giving you. She's like, "Go, Mom, go."
My work lately is a little different. So we, my colleagues and I, are working on a project funded by the federal government here, looking at what would be reasonable maximum standards for heat, air pollution, waterfall. So like your precipitation, your snowfall, and temperature on like heat, but also cold, that are reasonable for children to be playing outside. And so we're looking at implementing standards that would cut across schools, camps, sports, rec, like everything, anywhere a kid would be, any childcare setting. And so that's like a whole lot of research because we're trying to figure out what that looks like across a range of different sports with a range of different kids' bodies, taking into consideration, there's a whole black hole, to be totally honest, in terms of research around like teenage girls and adolescent girls. Everybody in the research world seems to have thought like, oh, girls hit puberty, and like, no, that's too scary. We're not going to touch it. So now being like a girl mom, I'm like, oh, no. Like I need my kid to be safe. So there's a lot of work happening around like, what does it look like to keep kids safe outside? And that got kicked off tragically after last year. 6 boys in the US died in the span of a week on football fields from heat. And that like really set off alarm bells all across North America, among parent groups actually initially, and then doctors groups. And then like now it hit the research space. So that's what I'm leading here in Canada. It's been a lot of fun, meaningful, and terrifying, kind of in all equal measure.
Such a great way to end this conversation, which this conversation could have gone on for another hour or two. I have questions on my question sheet that I didn't even get to. I'm struck, and this is not surprising because I know you guys, but I am struck by the combination of stubbornness, momness, creativity-ness, if that's even an adverb, I don't know. You know, finding a way to get to a better place, even when there are obstacles coming in, including from external sources, internal sources, and that you all are on this path, on the path in the green sports world, your own individual paths, but are part of this, are leading this world. Really, it makes me feel, cliche as it is, a bit better about the future. And so I'm glad to share this present as I watch you guys shape the future. So thank you, Kristen Fulmer and Winnie, Kristen Hanksor and Shannon, Maddie Orr and Eva, and Ali Criscuolo and Luca for being part of this Green Sports Pod conversation like no other. I am just so glad to know you and so glad that you all are doing this work. And to the viewers and listeners out there, thank you for being on this with us on this journey. And we will be back with you with another episode of Green Sports Pod in the not so distant future. So thank you very much.